Good evening, everyone. Hope everyone is well. Thank you for joining our Hilchos Loshon Hara group. We're in Sefer Chafetz Chaim, Klal Ches, Sif Gimel. So we're going to do Sif Gimel and Dal today, Mirz Hashem. Okay, so the Chafetz Chaim in this chapter, in this Klal, was discussing who the halacha of the Isser of saying Lashon Hara, the transgression of Lashon Hara, who it goes on, who it applies to. So it applies to both men and women, he says, whether they are the subject of the Lashon Hara, speaking about them, a man or a woman, doesn't matter, or or if a man or woman speaks Lashon Hara, it applies, to either gender in all scenarios. Okay, so the Chafetz Chaim in Sif Gimel writes that even sometimes can apply to a child. Even can apply to a child in the situation where, let's say, it will cause damage to the child. It will cause, let's say, he's unfortunately, let's say, Rahman al-Son is an orphan. Somebody took an orphan into their house, or a foster child, something like that. And when you say Lashon Hara about this child, these people that he says something negative about him, the people who took him in might get nervous and throw him out of the house, and it'll cause tremendous pain and damage and tsar to the child. That situation would be forbidden to say Lashon Hara about the child. He says, though, however, if the intent of the Lashon Hara, you said, let's say you saw the kid doing something dangerous or something like that, and your intention is to remove damage. Let's say, I don't know, the kid is Nebuch has problems and he's scared he's going to light the house on fire, something crazy like that, or some other sort of damage. He's a destructive person, whatever it is, and you're telling the people who are housing him this in order that they should protect themselves, that will be permitted. Or if it's to straighten out the kid, you'll know that the person is, the people taking them in are not going to throw them out, and they'll try to help the kid. They'll get him whatever help he needs, psychiatric help, whatever it is. So then in that situation, it would be permitted. But the Chafetz Chaim says that you should be very careful, because many times these situations, when you say Lashon Hara about the child, it gets twisted. The words get twisted. The fears get blown out of proportion, and therefore you have to be careful and know for sure what the results of your Lashon Hara would be before wantonly saying Lashon Hara. Okay, Chafetz Chaim continues in Sif Dalid that the Isser of Lashon Hara applies even if you're speaking about an Am Aretz. Somebody doesn't know any Torah. Let's say somebody is completely an ignoramus in Torah. The Lashon Hara applies to him. A person shouldn't think, well, he doesn't know Torah, so I could speak whatever I want about him. No such thing. A person is an Am Aretz. He says his Lashon is Gamhu B'chlal Am Hashem V'tzivosav. He's also part of Hashem's nation. He's a treasured part of Hashem's nation and part of his legion, so to speak. That Hashem took out the people who didn't know Torah also from Mitzrayim. Every single Jew is very precious in the eyes of Hashem. So therefore, speaking Lashon Hara about such a person applies as well. And he says, surely a Talmud Chacham. If somebody says Lashon Hara about a Talmud Chacham, then the sin is much greater. And Chazal say there's people who say bad about Talmud Chacham. There's scary Gemaras about this stuff, about people who speak badly about Talmidei Chachamim, and people, especially Mevazah Talmud Chacham, somebody embarrasses a Talmud Chacham, it's even worse. So sometimes if a person speaks Lashon Hara about a Talmud Chacham, it'll also be fall into that category. This person has to be very, very careful when he's speaking Lashon Hara, and not only in general, but surely about a Talmud Chacham. He says the Yetzer Hara tries to trick us, and he says, when the Gemara says Mevazah Talmud Chacham, that you can't embarrass Talmud Chacham or speak Lashon Hara about a Talmud Chacham, that's only referring to the Talmidei Chachamim in the times of the Mishnah, times of the Gemara, where they're real Talmidei Chachamim, which of course they're a much, much higher level. We can't even dream of being on any Talmud Chacham today couldn't even dream of being on the level of the Tanoim Amoraim. We can't comprehend fully their greatness, or even a little bit their greatness. There were such high levels and such great people. However, the Chafetz Chaim writes that's not accurate. A Talmud Chacham is anybody in his generation who devotes himself to Torah, his languages. He can teach Torah, and he devotes himself to Torah. That's considered a Talmud Chacham. And if you just if he embarrasses him with words, even with nothing, not even even if he's not there, so it's avon plili. It's a very very frightening sin, and he's chayiv to be put in cherem, to be excommunicated. It's a serious matter. Okay, and he says surely if the person that he's embarrassing is a rav, a person who's a rav of a shul or Rosh Shiva or something like that, who teaches people, who people ask psak from, who guides people. So then, in that situation, for sure, it'll be even worse, because then people are going to believe what the person says about these people. Let's say he says, this person doesn't really, he's embarrasses the Talmid Chacham who's the rav of the city, or the rav of a community. And then people used to go ask him shilas, and I say, I'm not going to ask him shilas, and then people are going to, because you heard your Loshon Hara. They said about him, so they're gonna accept this Loshon Hara, and they're not gonna go ahead and ask him shilas anymore. They're gonna be denigrated. He's gonna be denigrated in their people's eyes, and therefore the level of Torah observance and halacha is gonna drop precipitously, because people might not place the rav or whatever, find a new rav, and therefore that is much worse. Also, it would apply the same thing to Rosh Shiva or somebody like that. If he say Lashon Hara in front of his Talmidim, so then the Talmidim might not go to him for advice and hadracha and guidance, and can have terrible ramifications. Therefore, he says it's even a worse sin. Therefore, a person has to be careful. By Stam and Ama Aretz, of course, and surely a Talmid Chacham, and for sure a Rav of a city or Rosh Shiva, something like that, who guides people to not speak Lashon Hara about them, because the sin gets exponentially worse. Thank you for joining. Everybody should have a great evening, and Shavua Tov. All the best.